1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today we are talking about manga. If you didn't know about me already, I am a big, well, I don't know if I'm necessarily a big anime and manga fan. I don't watch anime every day. I don't read manga every day. It's actually been a while since I've watched an anime. I just haven't had the time. And I have been reading manga. The last one I was starting to read was Timon's B-side, I think. I can put it over here. And that was getting really good. And I mostly was interested in it because I found the anime from it. And that's how a lot of it happens. But today we're going to be talking about some older manga. And I thought it would be fun just to talk about a lot of things because some of my top three, not my top three, but some of my favorite manga is being adapted into anime. At least two of them are. I think one of them we maybe have a chance. I don't know necessarily. But let's just jump into it. One of my favorite series of all time, and one of the first manga I ever actually read was. The Japanese pronunciation of it should be Kanatakara, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I hope I am. But the English is From Far Away. Here is one of the original manga copies that I own. I had to buy it off of eBay because it was officially out of print. However, like in March, I think, I saw on Crunchyroll that they had announced that for the 35th anniversary of this, it was getting an anime adaptation. And like that's crazy. 35 years it took to get an anime adaptation of this. When did, well, yeah, 35 years that this came out. Let's see, does it have, I don't know if manga has copyright in it or not. This says 2003, which is not correct. If it's the 35th anniversary, hold on, 1991. This came out in 1991, 5 years before I was born. This was one of the first things that I read. Yo ho is all I'll say online. Uh, if you know, you know. But anyway, From Far Away follows Noriko. She is a young Japanese schoolgirl who is transported into this magical world where she is known. She has like a special name that I can't remember off the top of my head. Yeah, the Awakening. I literally just remembered it. She is known as the Awakening, and she is supposed to awaken this great beast that's going to terrorize the world. And when she first falls into this magical world, she falls, not falls, well, she does. She runs into a guy named Izark, and he, unbeknownst to her, he is the beast, or he is destined to become the beast that she is supposed to awaken. And he had the goal of her. But then he meets her and he's like, "You're just a young kid. Like, I'm not going to do that for you." So these two are then kind of thrown together on this adventure where they get to know each other, get to know this world. They get to know their own powers that come through and just what it really means to be a monster and what it means to be a man. Why does that kind of remind me of Muppet or Man from the Muppets? The only Muppet song to get an Oscar, which is crazy. I mean, it's a good song, but this is actually the first isekai that I ever read. And if you don't know what isekai is, that is when a main character falls into another world. And it is so far different from there. So most of the time, it is one coming from our world and they are falling into a crazy fantasy one or maybe a sci-fi one. I do think it would be interesting to have almost an enchanted moment where we have someone coming in from a high fantasy crazy world into ours. That could be fun. I'm sure that webtoon or manga is out there. But I was so excited to see this because I have all of them. I'm not going to show you all of them because they're on my top shelf and they're very heavy. But there's about 14 or 15. There are 14 volumes in this. So I don't know if we're going to get the full like series adaptation. I don't know because I don't know where they would leave off. Manga and anime is so amazing to me because like they can figure out like different arcs and stuff that they can leave off. It's been a while since I've read this, so I don't necessarily know where they would leave off for the anime. It would be really cool if we could get a whole series anime, but I fear we might end up like an Ouran High School Host Club and we'll only get one season. But I really love this. I really love the art style. I own the art book as well, which shows some of the old covers and stuff. And these two are like my first little ship. I love them so much. That's Noriko and that's Izark. And something I really loved about this is that so many other characters will fall into fantasy worlds and automatically they know the language and the culture is very similar to what we know in our own world and everything. And maybe that's just an easier way to get the reader to adapt to the world, and I get that. But in this one, Noriko doesn't understand the language. Noriko has to learn the language. And she learns it within, like, not, she doesn't learn the whole thing, obviously. It takes her months and months and months to learn this language. But she very quickly realizes that she doesn't understand it and she starts adapting. So but instead of making them learn her language, she learns their language. And I just thought that was so cool. That's not something you see a lot. So that is From Far Away. They did announce that it's getting an anime sometime in 2026, but I don't know when. I keep checking to see. So if anyone knows, please let me know. I'm so excited. Falling on another one. This one is not getting an anime adaptation. However, it is the 30th anniversary, so they are getting some special hardcover manga re-releases out there that are going to combine. It's one of those omnibus things where they're going to combine a bunch of the manga into one. I believe it's going to end up being 8 volumes instead of what do we have? Instead of the 16 that we have, it's going to be 8. So it's going to be much shorter. So this other one is going to be very different from Far Away, but we have Mars, and this is from 1996. Mars follows Kira. She is a young high school student who has been through a very traumatic life. I don't recommend this book if trauma is not your thing. This is a very dark, I think I read this far too young kind of a thing. Trigger warnings for schmexual assault, uh, violence, lots of mental health issues going on with this. But it's the story of Kira and Ray, I think is his name. Yes, Ray. She is a very quiet girl. She's been through a lot and she doesn't like men. She hates all men because of her experience. And then she runs into Ray. And Ray is the epitome of a playboy. He's always bouncing around back and forth. And he meets Kira and he's like, hey, thanks for helping me that one time. Do you want to be friends? And she's just kind of very reluctantly becoming his friend. But it's the two of them going through their trauma together, like reliving their past and where they got to where they are today, and then going through more trauma as the story continues, and just learning to fall in love with each other. This did get a live action adaptation, I think in the early 2000s or maybe the 2010s. And I believe it was a Japanese adaptation. It's a very unique art style. I feel like I haven't really seen this art style of this artist in a long time. This is definitely very reminiscent of the early 90s kind of manga. We got our pretty boys on here. It does follow some early tropes that we see in a lot of romance manga. Our main character cries a lot, and our main guy is kind of a douche a lot. But they do both grow and they do both make up for it in the end, which is something I appreciate a lot. And yeah, I just there's so much I can't tell you because of the main points in this story being centered around a lot of different events. This is very soap opera-y. If you like a good soap opera, if you like a good K-drama, this might be it for you. But I do want to say it is very heavy on the triggers for it. If you're, I'm warning you right now. I don't recommend this for anyone under the age of 18 because there is sexual content, consensual and non-consensual, unfortunately. But yeah, anyway, that's Mars. Mars is getting their own 30th anniversary adaptation. It's getting a nice hardcover edition. I'm interested to see if it gets enough traction, if they would ever do an anime adaptation of it. For a while, I was like, no, like it's got some really crazy themes in there. I don't know if they would do it. And then they made Attack on Titan, which was just grotesque. If you've ever seen Attack on Titan, it's just blood and gore everywhere. And I feel like if they can make that and half the anime they make featuring young girls who are thousands of years old, but they have badonkadonks. Now, I feel like we could get an anime adaptation of this, and I think that would be really cool. But anyway, that's Mars. This next one is getting another anime adaptation, and again, because of some of the content in this, I think we could get a Mars adaptation. But anyway, this is another one that came out in 1995. It is getting another resurgence in an anime for its first anime. So many animes or if they're adapting from manga in 1990s. I'm curious as to what's going on in Japan, what they're thinking and what's going on. But anyway, this next one is a classic and well known. It is Red River, as you can see. Red River is another isekai one. However, this one is more time travel-y. We follow Yuri, who is a modern day Japanese girl. This is 1995 when she falls back in time. So I don't know if the anime is going to stay consistent with that or if she's going to just fall back in our version of modern time. I don't think it's going to matter that much because she's not really in the modern time for too long, but we shall see. But she falls back thousands of years into the past. She's transported to ancient Anatolia, which is thousands of years ago, because at one point they do talk about King Ramesses, which is BC times. So if you don't know where Anatolia is, it's near the Middle East, but it's also closer to the Mediterranean. I think it's closer to where about the Ottoman Empire, if you're thinking about that in more modern history of where that would be. But she falls back in time because she is pulled back by an ancient evil queen who is trying to sacrifice her so that her son can then become the king of this empire. And she runs away and she gets away and she finds the second prince of the empire. And she's like, "Can you help me?" And he goes, "Yeah, sure, if you become my concubine." And that, that's kind of it. It's he takes her in under his wing because he sees something in her that he likes. Again, almost kind of a product of its time, especially if you read a lot of historical romance in that. This is more historical adventure and romance, but there is a lot of sexual assault implied and happens in this book. Um, ooh, can be kind of ooh in it. I don't know if the anime is gonna. I feel like the anime has to feature it because it's a huge part in the manga series. Unfortunately, our main character Yuri is nearly assaulted all the time. Nearly every new man she meets tries to assault her. And that sucks. And it is a product of its time. However, she does become like a badass and like goes into battle and stuff and fights and all of this. Not to say that that erases what happens to her, but that is just a big part of the story. So I'm curious as to if the anime, how much of that it's going to adapt, how much of it might change for a modern audience, but we'll see. This was another one that I loved as a kid. And again, it's just like a high fantasy story. And it's just, there are so many twists and turns that happen. And I love a good historical story. This was during, my ancient Egypt phase, which again, doesn't take place in ancient Egypt. It takes place in ancient Anatolia, which is near Egypt. However, there is like a big conflict that happens with Egypt at one point, so there is like a bit of a back and forth with it. So that is Red River. That is another one that is getting not only new manga, as you can see, this is another combination one. I don't have the original manga ones. That was just never something I got off of eBay. Maybe I would in the future, but I'm also just getting the new bound ones because it's just easier that way. Anyway, this was a super short video. I just wanted to talk about some manga that I'm interested in that's becoming anime, that's getting some special editions out there and stuff. And are you guys interested in that at all? I might make more manga content. I don't have much. I have, as you can see, I have Red River, I have From Far Away and Mars. These are the only two completed mangas that I own. I am also starting my collection on getting the Apothecary Diaries. I have My Happy Marriage, Honey Lemon Soda, and I do have Inuyasha as well. I need to try to finish those series, my collections of those as well. But these are just some that I really like, and I'm really excited, especially for From Far Away is getting their anime adaptation, and I'm excited to see where it goes from here. So thank you guys for joining me today, and I hope you had fun.